I think by now we all know who Wim Hof is. We've all seen him sitting in a Speedo on a sheet of ice. While many people might marvel at this ability to withstand the cold, several people wonder, what exactly is the point of this? Wim Hof touts his method as a way to not just withstand the cold and extreme temperatures. He claims that intense breath work and exposing yourself to these extreme cold temperatures might actually have a lot of physical and mental health benefits. His claims have allowed him to garner a cult-like following, where people literally follow him out into the icy wilderness in an attempt to be more like him. But is it all that it's cracked up to be? Is the Wim Hof combination of breathwork and cold exposure therapy a magic cure-all? Or is this another online health guru trying to scam followers out of money and hide active lawsuits against him from the public? Is it a man who's just hungry for power and influence no matter the cost? Today, we'll try to answer those questions. So sit back and grab a hot drink because we're getting cold. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. If you're into this kind of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would absolutely love to have you here. Now, we are going to jump right in, but I do want to offer just a brief disclaimer because I know that there are going to be a lot of people who follow Wim Hof or do his practices or really believe in breathwork that might come to this video and get a little triggered or upset. Now, I'm going to present information from both sides, people that love Wim Hof, what Wim Hof says himself, and from the critics. I want to share that I am someone who really believed in breathwork. I did Wim Hof every morning for a couple of years. The cult that I actually got roped into was a breathwork and meditating cult. That was like the foundation of the cult, and I didn't know what it was until I'd already been involved for like a year and a half. So the reason that this topic is so interesting to me is because these intense spiritual or maybe even health practices can create a very culty environment. So I am just sharing this information with you so that you can make an educated decision. I am not a health professional. I am not a mental health professional. It is not my job to decide what works and what doesn't. Are there things about Wim Hof and breathwork and meditation and cold exposure in general that may show signs of improving health? Absolutely. But are there also a lot of concerns, and have people been really hurt or have they even died from doing this practice? The answer is also yes. So I'm just going to ask you that you watch this video with an open mind. And with all of that being said, let's jump right into it. So Wim Hof was born on April 20th, 1959 in Sittard, Netherlands, and he was one of 9 siblings. His childhood was marked by discipline and simplicity, 2 things that would shape his career and philosophy. His father was a hard-working Dutchman who instilled in him the value of resilience and grit, while his mother had a more nurturing presence, fostering a deep connection to nature in young Wim. Wim Hof has described his childhood home as humble, where the family had little material wealth but lived richly in connection to the natural world. This early exposure to the elements made him feel in tune to nature's power, but it was his own curiosity about extreme conditions that would lead him into the cold. Wim Hof's connection to the cold and breathwork began as part of his lifelong quest to explore the limits of human potential and the power of the mind. His fascination with the cold started at an early age when he felt that deep connection to nature. However, it wasn't until his teen years, around 17, that Wim Hof had a very profound experience with the cold that would end up changing his life. One winter day, while walking near a frozen canal in Amsterdam, he was drawn to take a plunge into the icy water. This spontaneous immersion triggered a powerful physical and mental response in him. It provided him a sense of clarity, calm, and a connection to nature or something else, something that he'd never experienced before. This cold, Hoff realized, had a profound impact on his body and his mind. And he says it helped him achieve a meditative state and a heightened sense of awareness. He felt that the cold was a path to unlocking deeper control over his body and emotions. From this point forward, cold therapy became a central aspect of his life. The breathwork component of his practice developed as a way to prepare his body for these extreme cold exposures. By practicing controlled breathing techniques, Hoff discovered that he could influence his autonomic nervous system and withstand extreme cold without experiencing the usual discomfort. Over time, he refined his breathing techniques, which are now a critical part of the Wim Hof method. This combination of cold exposure and breath work, along with a mindset of mental focus and determination, allowed him to perform incredible feats of endurance, including climbing Mount Everest in shorts, running a marathon in the Arctic without shoes, and setting numerous world records related to cold exposure. Now, Wim Hof met his wife, Alaya, in the Netherlands. She was originally from Spain, and the two shared a deep connection early on in their relationship. They had 4 children together and built a life that was influenced by a shared interest in living close to nature, spirituality, and their family. However, in 1995, tragedy struck when Alaya died by unaliving. She'd been struggling with her mental health issues for years, including depression and other things, and her condition just seemed to worsen over time. The emotional toll of this battle, combined with external pressures, just became too overwhelming for her. Her sudden death left Wim Hof devastated and heartbroken. He's described it as the moment that shook him to his core, leaving him feeling lost and in just a deep well of emotional pain. In the aftermath of her death, Wim Hof turned to nature, to cold exposure, and breathing techniques to help him process his grief and find healing. He found solace in extreme cold environments, where he would focus his mind and body away from his suffering. Hof has spoken openly about how this period in his life was transformative, pushing him to develop what would later be called the Wim Hof Method. This is the combination of cold therapy and breathwork exercises, and even meditation. He claims that this combination helped him regain control over his mental state and channel his energy into self-healing. Wim Hof often talks about Alaya's death as the moment that motivated him to share his method with the world, to help others who are suffering, and to promote resilience, mental health, and well-being. Her passing deeply shaped his philosophy on life, resilience, and the power of the mind over the body. In essence, Wim Hof's journey to the cold and breathwork stemmed from a deep curiosity about human limits, a natural affinity for nature, and later, a need for personal healing and resistance. He believes that his Wim Hof method is the path to both physical health and emotional well-being. So what exactly is the Wim Hof method? Well, it's a practice that combines cold exposure, breathing techniques, and mindset/focus to enhance both physical and mental health. You can listen to a recording for free on YouTube, but it's basically some really deep inhales and exhales with very long holds of the breath. He claims that this method helps individuals improve their immune system, increase energy levels, reduce stress, and manage pain, among many other benefits. So here's a detailed breakdown of the Wim Hof method's key components. So the first one is cold therapy, and this is one of the foundational pillars of the method. It involves deliberate and gradual exposure to cold environments or cold water, like ice baths or cold showers. Hof believes that by conditioning the body to withstand that extreme cold, practitioners can enhance their body's resilience and experience a wide range of health benefits. One of those is a boosted immune system. Hof argues that cold therapy stimulates the immune response, helping to fight off illnesses. Now, some studies suggest that cold exposure may increase the number of white blood cells, thus aiding immune function. He also says that you will reduce inflammation through cold exposure. It can be really beneficial to reduce inflammation if you have chronic pain or some kind of autoimmune conditions. He's even gone so far to claim that one can prove their autoimmune conditions by doing his method, even though there's not a ton of scientific proof to prove that. Now, he also says that you improve your circulation because you're constricting and dilating the blood vessels during that cold exposure. And Hof claims that this leads to better cardiovascular health. He also says that this method enhances mental toughness and stress tolerance. Regular cold exposure apparently trains the mind to handle discomfort and stress, making individuals more resilient in everyday life. Basically, if you put yourself in a voluntary, anxious, or high-stress situation, the next time a stressful situation arises in your life, in theory, you should be able to handle it a little bit better. He also claims that cold therapy gives you a metabolism boost and increases fat burning. Apparently, exposure to cold activates brown fat in the body, which generates heat by burning calories, potentially aiding in weight loss. So now we're going to move over to some of the breathwork aspects. So the breathwork component of the Wim Hof method is a specialized technique that involves really intense hyperventilation. It's deep inhalations and big exhalations, and then you hold your breath for as long as you can. So basically, you're taking 30 to 40 deep breaths, fully inhaling through the nose or mouth and exhaling without force. But it's also kind of hard to exhale without force. I've done this method. I've seen people do this method, and the stress that it looks like it has on their bodies, like tensing up on the inhale and like forcing the air out, it's difficult to do this properly, in my opinion, without proper guidance. But he claims that this type of breathing increases oxygen levels in the body and thus will help amplify your physical performance. So like if you're able to do 10 push-ups before you do your breath work, now you can do 15. There's also that breath retention or holding your breath. So after the last exhalation of the cycle, you hold your breath for as long as possible until you get the urge to breathe. And what I always found interesting about his method was you're not really holding your breath, like taking a breath and holding it. You literally exhale all your breath and then just don't breathe at all. So you're pushing the breath out and then not taking a breath in. So you're not really holding your breath. You're just not breathing, in my opinion. So then you have your recovery breath. So after you've released all the air from your lungs, then you inhale deeply and hold that breath for 10 to 15 seconds. And then you repeat all of that multiple times for about 10 minutes. And I'll admit, the physical sensation and the mental clarity that you can gain from doing this practice is very impressive. I love the relaxed way my body feels when I've done breath work like this, and using it as a tool to kind of focus your mind on something going into a meditation, it really, really does calm your mind down. So I'm saying that to say that absolutely, I do believe that there are benefits. But do I believe that this should be like a religious part of your life to the point where you're like, oh, I'm going to see if I can hold my breath for 3 minutes? I personally just don't think that that's necessarily that beneficial. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. I also kind of adjusted doing the Wim Hof method to make it work more for me. And I think that that's what's really important is if you're practicing this method, take what works for you, absolutely, but don't become so obsessed with it that it like rules your life. Because that's what I've seen with a lot of people that like do breath work a lot is it's like it becomes their whole personality. But Hof claims that this breathing technique has a variety of benefits. So one of them is increased oxygen supply. So by increasing your oxygen intake and temporarily lowering carbon dioxide, Hof suggests that the body's pH becomes more alkaline, leading to heightened alertness, improved energy, and better endurance. This is not proven by any actual scientific data, though. And also, there are parts of your body that want to have a certain pH. Your body will balance it naturally. He also says it reduces stress and anxiety. The breathing technique is said to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, so it promotes relaxation and reduces stress. He also claims that there's an improved concentration and focus. He claims that the breathing exercises enhance mental clarity, and this leads to improved cognitive function and mood regulation. He also says that this is immune system enhancement, and he really came to a lot of fame in 2020 when people weren't wanting to get any medication to treat the worldwide pandemic that was going on. Because apparently, according to Wim Hof, to battle a disease that is spread through, air and into your lungs and can cause autoimmune diseases is to just do really, really deep breathing. Seems a little counterintuitive to me, but he does claim that it enhances your immune system. He says that it stimulates the autonomic nervous system, so it improves your immune function and gives you a resistance to illness. Now, a study back in 2014 did show that participants who practiced the Wim Hof method could voluntarily influence their autonomic nervous systems and immune responses. It doesn't go so far, though, to claim that you're gaining total immunity from all viruses and bacteria. Now, the final component of the Wim Hof method is mental discipline. He emphasizes the importance of using focus and concentration and commitment to gain control over both your body and mind. He asserts that a strong mindset is necessary to perform the cold exposure and breathing exercises effectively and to push yourself past physical discomfort. By practicing the Wim Hof method consistently, he claims that individuals can develop mental toughness, which can then be applied to overcoming life's challenges. This mental aspect is often linked to improved willpower, self-discipline, increased pain tolerance and resilience, better emotional control, and management of stress. He also claims that doing cold therapy with this breathwork combo can help you recover from your workouts more and improve your sleeping patterns. But I think you can suffice it to say that anytime you push yourself past what you see as a limit is going to build up your willpower. It's going to make you feel better about yourself, because when we do hard things and we prove to ourselves in general that we can do hard things, it does make us feel better about ourselves because we've achieved a quote unquote hard thing. It's really funny because when I first got into yoga, I found my way into Bikram, which if you want a video about Bikram, let me know because I would love to cover that. But Bikram said the same thing about his practice, right? The intense heat, the intense sweating, the go through the whole 90-minute long, 75% humidity and 105 degrees yoga class without water because that's going to improve your mental toughness and resilience and make you believe you can do hard things. I feel like that's kind of like the same thing, but with the cold instead of the hot. Because anytime we expose ourselves to any type of element and we end up surviving that element, of course, we're going to feel unstoppable, top of the world. It's the same thing when you go to the gym and you lift a bit heavier of a weight, or you stay on the treadmill for 10 minutes longer than you did yesterday. Even though it's hard, when you're pushing past that moment where your body is screaming for you to stop and you just keep going, of course you're going to feel good about yourself. Of course it's going to give you some more willpower. But of course, that is just my opinion. So I know I've been a little bit critical so far, but I've also seen the positive aspects of this practice in my own life. However, researchers have also pointed out that a lot of these findings, even that 2014 study, are preliminary. Now, while they're exciting, they do not yet prove that the method can cure diseases or provide all of the benefits that Hof claims that it can provide. And despite the method's popularity, the Wim Hof method is not without its risks, and in some cases, those risks have been fatal. The dangers associated with the Wim Hof method have primarily been linked to his breathing exercises, particularly when combined in water activities, as seen in several cases of drowning. The breathing exercises Hof advocates for involve really deep inhales and exhales followed by periods of breath holding. And while these techniques are designed to lower carbon dioxide levels in the blood and lead to feelings of calm and euphoria, they can also cause a dangerous phenomenon known as shallow water blackout. A shallow water blackout occurs when a person loses consciousness underwater due to hypoxia or lack of oxygen to the brain. It often happens when a swimmer hyperventilates or holds their breath for too long. So since Wim Hof breathing technique involves long breath holds, it can cause a person to pass out suddenly, especially when jumping into cold water, because your body is not getting the same warning signals of low oxygen because you're allowing yourself to voluntarily get into a position where you have low oxygen. So this can lead to the person drowning if they're not rescued immediately. In 2014, 4 men tragically drowned while practicing Wim Hof's breathing exercises in water. They were found to have lost consciousness during the breath holding practice, and they had nobody with them to assist them. So they drowned before any help could arrive. And what's especially dangerous about this is Wim Hof is promoting this practice as something that's easy to do by yourself. And he hasn't always been the best, in my opinion, at sharing the risks and encouraging people to do this with a group of people or a person who can guide them or coach them. Although now you can become Wim Hof Breathwork certified, which I'm sure is a costly certification. So these incidents drew widespread attention to the risks of practicing the Wim Hof method in unsafe environments, especially in water, without supervision. And there have also been other deaths linked to the Wim Hof method prior to 2015. These deaths raised concerns from health professionals and with critics arguing that participants were not adequately warned of the potential dangers of these practices, especially combined with the water immersion. Now, there have also been reports of hypothermia from people attempting extreme cold exposure without proper guidance. And Wim Hof recently did like a winter hike where he invited people to come on this hike with him, and they're all shirtless and hiking through the snow, which I guess looks cool when you see it, but I just can't help but wonder how many of those people were close to hypothermia, even though they were doing it with Wim Hof himself. And we'll watch a few testimonials of this and see that this is where things start to get a little bit culty, but more on that later. Anyways, cold exposure can scientifically be dangerous if not managed carefully, particularly with individuals with any kind of underlying health condition. But in response to these tragedies, Wim Hof did acknowledge the risks associated with performing breath hold exercises in water and has added more prominent warnings to his materials, explicitly advising against practicing the breathing exercises near or in water. But despite all that, because they see Wim Hof doing it and he says that if he can do it, you can do it, people ignore those warnings, leading to more potential danger. Now, while the Wim Hof method is widely promoted for its health benefits, these incidents highlight the importance of safety measures and understanding the risks involved, particularly for individuals who might not fully grasp the potential danger of these powerful breathing techniques. Now, there have been a lot of criticisms and safety concerns. Now, he has exaggerated the health benefits. He says that his method is a way to boost your immune system, increase energy. What's also dangerous about this is with wellness gurus like Wim Hof, there seems to be this idea of if he can do something and accomplish some task or some really strange cold exposure or breath work, then you should do it too. Because if he, a man who was born in the Netherlands where it is cold most of the year, I imagine, he's saying that people from southern, western areas where it might be hot are going to be able to experience the same benefits that he's experiencing. But what people fail to realize is they're not Wim Hof. These exercises can be really risky for people with underlying conditions like heart problems or even high blood pressure. If you have anxiety, putting yourself into a position where you are hyperventilating is not going to help your mental health. This is all proof that it can be dangerous if not performed without proper guidance. People have died from doing this because they listened to a guru and didn't listen to their own bodies because they're constantly encouraged to push themselves past their comfort zone. And the comfort zone is there for a reason. It's there to protect you. There's also a lack of sufficient peer-reviewed studies. Some experts argue that while a few scientific studies have shown positive effects, like a decreased inflammation or improved stress response, the results are very preliminary, like we mentioned before. And there's a lot more rigorous and long-term research needed to validate the broader claims that Hof makes, particularly regarding the immune system regulation and its effect on chronic illnesses. A lot of critics argue that Wim Hof's charismatic promotion of extreme cold immersion may encourage reckless behavior, especially among those who are not adequately prepared or aware of the risks. Now, this is when we get into this cult-like following, because another criticism centers around the culty nature of Hof's following. His larger-than-life persona and the way his methods are marketed have led some people to believe that the community surrounding him is more akin to a spiritual movement than any kind of scientifically backed wellness practice.
I wanted to experience his energy because I wanted to experience the real stuff.
I was there to learn more about myself, to be able to focus on my health, to focus on me, to take care of myself. And I was also there to have fun.
While the sense of community can be beneficial to some, as we've seen in these testimonials, critics caution that this devotion may lead people to overlook the risks or follow the method too rigorously without seeking medical advice when needed. And yes, I know it seems really cool to go on a winter hike with a bunch of strangers from all over the world and feel like you found a close, tight community, but you're all really just kind of stroking each other's egos, in my opinion. Is it that necessary to go on a winter hike and risk hypothermia or death? So he's garnered a cult-like following for many reasons, partly due to the charisma, partly due to the extreme nature of his methods, and of course those profound claims of physical and mental transformation. But here's an in-depth look into why people are so drawn to him. He has a really magnetic personal story, and that can make people feel more relatable to him. If he uses the tragic death of his wife as a means to push mental health, then people are going to align with that. People are going to want to understand how he moved through his grief. And if he claims that his resilience and message of empowerment happened because of breathwork, well, that is going to resonate deeply with individuals who are seeking relief from grief or other mental health issues, or even stress, or just personal hardship. He's vulnerable with people, and he was triumphant in creating something that was beneficial to him and possibly other people. And this gives him a really powerful narrative that his followers connect to emotionally. He also is making those promises of profound physical and mental benefits. And that is always something that cult leaders look for. They want to have control over their nervous system. They want to have a spiritual awakening. They want to feel more focused, more at peace. They want to feel healthier. And he has made a lot of public demonstrations of his own extreme endurance, and he says it's because he does breath work and cold therapy. If you want to also climb Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts, go for it. But this isn't real credibility. But to the naked eye, it's impressive. It looks credible. So people are drawn to the idea that they can push their bodies beyond normal human limits and take control of their health. It's almost like they start feeling like they could be superhuman. And of course, community. That's always the cornerstone of a cult. There has been a global community created of practitioners who share a sense of belonging. And this is similar to what's seen in a lot of cults. His workshops, his retreats, his other events provide people with a space to bond, sometimes trauma bond, over their extreme experiences and encourage each other to continue breathwork and cold exposure and share how those things helped shape their lives or heal them. These immersive experiences, sometimes taking place in those harsh environments, they foster a sense of transformation and commitment, even if that's not really happening. Even if you can't take that transformation home with you to Southern California, where it's 75 and sunny almost every day of the year. The group's dynamics, coupled with Hof's charisma, intensify participants' belief in the method. It's like a way to keep you involved in doing it. And it gives you proximity to a man that's admired by millions of people. And it strokes your ego when you can do not just hard things, but extreme things. These physical feats, these intense, extreme activities create a sense of accomplishment. And this fosters a really deep connection to the practice and creates almost an identity with the practice. Like, I am a breathwork practitioner. I can hike a mountain in my underwear. Cool, that's great for you. I'm not sure why it makes you think you're better than anybody else, or like it's healing your life in any way other than you did something that most people probably wouldn't do or even care to do. And that's fine. I like doing extreme things. I do hot yoga almost every single day. And does it stroke my ego a little bit to know that I can do that every day and push myself in a new way every day? Absolutely. But I don't feel like I connect that to my personal identity, if that makes sense. I don't even really tell people, besides y'all, that I do that every day. I just think there's a fine line with a lot of these wellness and spiritual practices where you think you're becoming enlightened and like letting go of your ego. But what actually happens, and it's happened to me before, which is why I feel like I can say this, is there is this feeling of, well, I can do this and most people can't. And that means I am doing better at life than most people. There is an egoic aspect to it. It feels like you've tapped into something profound and life-changing, and you're having the personal breakthroughs, and you just want to keep coming back for more. A lot of people also claim that Wim Hof's method gives them a sense of spiritual awakening and personal growth. I mean, he often speaks about the mind-body connection and promotes the method as a way to access a higher state of consciousness. So this spiritual element appeals to those seeking a deeper meaning, akin to what some would describe as a spiritual leader or a guru. He's also gotten celebrity endorsements from wildly popular figures like Gwyneth Paltrow and Joe Rogan and a ton of other high-profile personalities that help legitimize Hof's practice in the public eye. So these endorsements, they create a sense of authority, and it makes it easier for people to accept Hof's methods without really having to question them. Many people are drawn to him as part of this broader trend of self-improvement and wellness and, honestly, perfectionism. In a world that's filled with stress and overwhelming expectations, Hof's method offers this simple yet radical way to reclaim control over one's health and life and well-being. It provides like an escape from modern life's pressures while offering a solution to physical and mental ailments. And guess who you get to credit all of your health to? Yourself, because you're the one doing the practice. But critics do argue that followers may place blind faith in Hof's methods without fully understanding the risks. And some followers may actually neglect conventional medical advice in favor of his teachings. And that is not very wise, because some individuals have actually reported worsening health conditions after attempting the Wim Hof method. There are many anecdotal stories of people with pre-existing health issues, particularly respiratory or cardiovascular conditions, and they end up experiencing complications after engaging in the intense breathing exercises. I mean, you're hyperventilating, you're holding your breath, and that can cause strain on the heart and the lungs, particularly in those who aren't physically prepared or don't even realize they might have some kind of underlying health condition. There are also psychological impacts. Some followers have shared that when they practice the Wim Hof method particularly, there are reports of individuals experiencing panic attacks, insane dizziness, or feelings of disorientation during or after the sessions. That hyperventilation component can sometimes lead to feelings of depersonalization or anxiety, especially in individuals who are already prone to those issues. Hyperventilation can lead to lower carbon dioxide levels in the blood, which will affect the body's pH balance and potentially lead to some of these really bad symptoms. We think that tingleness or that floating feeling that we get when we practice the Wim Hof method is really good, but it's actually kind of a disassociation from your body. Some individuals have also reported feeling depersonalization or disassociation, which is that sensation of feeling totally detached from oneself or feeling as though you're observing yourself from outside the body. And this can be really distressing for people who aren't prepared for it. That altered state of consciousness induced by the breathing exercises could be interpreted as threatening, especially if you're not familiar with meditation or breathwork. There are a ton of online forums like Reddit and Quora where practitioners have shared stories of these incredible experiences, but also people describing panic attacks, overwhelming feelings of anxiety, or a sensation of impending doom. Some people reported needing to stop the exercise immediately due to the intensity of their emotions, while others mentioned feeling really confused about how to process the emotional and physical reactions afterwards. A lot of reported psychological effects from this practice suggest that it's not suitable for everyone. So if you have a history of anxiety, a panic disorder, PTSD, or other mental health conditions, you might find these breathwork exercises really triggering or even destabilizing. Mental health professionals have raised concerns that altering the body's pH and oxygen balance can have unpredictable side effects. And without proper mental preparation or professional guidance, this can actually lead to very harmful psychological outcomes. But to be fair, Wim Hof does say as a disclaimer that one should consult a doctor before trying his method. And to avoid shallow water blackout, make sure that you're not doing the breath work inside a body of water. There's also the issue of over-reliance, which we touched on very briefly. But some followers of the Wim Hof method over-rely on the practice for treating their mental and physical ailments, and then they don't go to the doctor or use any evidence-based treatments. Some critics argue that Wim Hof's claims about curing diseases or treating serious conditions can lead followers to neglect important medical care, which can exacerbate their health problems in the long run. One of Wim Hof's loudest critics is journalist Scott Carney, who actually practiced the method for 12 years and even met Wim Hof himself. He was a big advocate for the Wim Hof method, but now he uses his blog as a way to share the terrible current stories and lawsuits that Wim Hof is currently faced with. And I want to share a little bit of that with you right now. This is coming directly from Scott Carney's blog. An incident on August 10th, 2022 could potentially spell the end of the Wim Hof method in America. In a complaint filed in the Los Angeles Superior Court, Raphael Metzger contends that Wim Hof and Innerfire, the organization that brings his method to the world, negligently caused the death of his daughter Madeline by failing to adequately warn his followers about the risk of drowning, that the techniques offer no health benefits, and that they should never be practiced by children. In a major lawsuit, he is seeking $67 million in damages, as well as an injunction against Hof and Innerfire from ever teaching his method in America again. The case is scheduled to go on trial, and this is the first formal legal action filed against Hof in an American court since he began teaching his method publicly about 10 years ago. The facts as he recounts them in his court filings are as follows. Madeline Rose Metzger started her morning at her father's palatial $1.8 million home with its large swimming pool surrounded by palm trees in an upscale neighborhood of Long Beach, California. Around 9:30 in the morning, the Cats followed Madeline into her father's home office as he prepared a deposition for the law firm he runs that handles toxic exposure cases. A little while later, she got into an argument with her mother on the phone about which local college would offer her the best multivariable calculus course. Her parents, Raphael and Tammy, divorced several years earlier and were not on the best terms. The discussion got heated enough that perhaps Madeline may have needed to calm her nerves. A tab on her computer linked to various Wim Hof Method training programs, but it's not clear whether she accessed it that day. What is clear is that at some point in the next few hours, she donned a bathing suit, dipped into the shallow end of the pool she rarely used, and drowned. That evening, her father found her face down in the water. He dragged her out and started performing CPR, but neither he nor the paramedics who arrived a few minutes later could bring her back to life. The Los Angeles County coroner concluded that the manner of death was accidental, but Raphael Metzger thinks there's a more direct explanation. His daughter passed out after performing several rounds of Wim Hof's characteristic hyperventilation breathing method in water and lost consciousness. Data from the Apple Watch she was wearing on her wrist that day could show characteristic variations in her heartbeat to add cadence to this claim. Metzger's attorney, Scott Bruce, said, "As tragic as Maddie's death was in isolation, it's not an isolated incident. We're seeking an injunction against Wim Hof for marketing his deadly breathing technique in the United States. The goal is that no more young Americans should die doing the Wim Hof breathing methods, which we've seen have a proven track record of leaving deaths and drownings in their wake." Raphael Metzger has also named his ex-wife Tammy as a defendant and accusing her of introducing their daughter to the Hof method in the first place without a full understanding of its underlying dangers. Contrary to the suit's claims, Hof and the keepers of his flame say they are meticulous and careful about warning people not to do these breathing exercises in water. Hof's website and YouTube videos do in fact include prominent warnings against performing the method in water. One typical example, a YouTube video that gives Hof's basic breathing instructions and has 66 million views, includes this warning in the description. Don't do the breathing exercises in a swimming pool, before going underwater, beneath the shower, or piloting any vehicle. Always practice sitting or lying down in a safe environment. Wim Hof doesn't teach hyperventilation techniques. Within the Wim Hof method, we never teach people to do our specific breathing exercises before submerging in water. We are very careful and protective in teaching the people the Wim Hof method so that they practice it in a safe environment, in a safe way. Whatever the particular merits of the Metzger case, which will come out in court proceedings, according to my reporting on the Wim Hof method over the last 10 years, as well as a network of current and former Wim Hof instructors and practitioners, and despite what InnerFire writes on their website, Wim Hof and his organization do not practice what they preach. Even in places where warnings exist, Hof simultaneously teaches a veritable recipe for blacking out in water. In numerous instances, he conflates waterwork and breathwork and abandons safety protocols that he explicitly states are necessary. According to a Wim Hof Method instructor, the training center that InnerFire operates in Poland lacks even basic safety gear like AEDs in case someone's heart stops during those intensive workshops. And I'll leave the full link to that blog in that pinned comment down below. So, while the Wim Hof method has benefited many, it is not without its risks. The drownings, the cold-related injuries, the psychological effects, and the exacerbation of pre-existing conditions show that the method can be dangerous if not practiced with caution and proper guidance. It's really crucial that people consult with a healthcare professional before engaging in extreme practices, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. Now, if you want some more stories or more reading, there are a ton of Reddit discussions and articles who have practiced the Wim Hof method and encountered difficulties. You know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. People come to the Wim Hof method because they believe in the potential health benefits. They trust the fervor of his charisma and his following, and they ignore the potential risks associated with it. And Wim Hof and his associates are really good at getting that negative attention off of them. But with any extreme practice, it's really important to balance enthusiasm with safety and to be wary of placing too much faith in a single leader's promises. The cult-like devotion seen in Hof's following illustrates the power of belief in personal transformation, but it also poses risks if taken to extremes. So what do you guys think about Wim Hof and his method and this whole deep dive? Do you think that he is kind of on his way to creating what we've seen so many cult leaders before him create? Or do you think that he does have a positive intention and he wants to help people in the world? It seems to me that maybe greed and power could have gotten to his head, and there's nowhere for him to go from here. His entire brand, his whole lifestyle is based around this practice. But how can we regulate something that has no scientific proof that it even works or is detrimental? Have you tried the Wim Hof method, and what was your experience with it? Do you agree with me in my assertion that it can be beneficial, but it needs to be done very carefully? To me, it's one of those things where it's like, take what serves you and kind of leave the rest. I think where people get into a dangerous territory with Wim Hof's method and other methods similar to it is it becomes their entire life. It becomes an obsession and they have to do it so perfectly instead of recognizing, oh, I really like breathwork as a tool, or I really like a cold shower to help me wake up in the morning. Look, my heritage is Finnish. So I was brought up going into the sauna and then jumping into a freezing cold lake and going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because in Finland, there's this cultural practice of the sauna, but there's also these health benefits that they believe are happening because of that heat and then freezing cold exposure. And I'll tell you, my body feels incredible. I feel fantastic when I do hot and cold water therapy, but it doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's going to enjoy an extreme heat or an extreme cold. But I will tell you that it definitely is a sensation that can be addictive. So whatever you do, whether you love Wim Hof, whether you are cautious about him, whether you're somewhere in the middle and you like some of the things and not all the other ones, just please move through any wellness practice, any guru advice, move towards it with a little bit of skepticism. Just take what works for you and leave all the rest. Just protect yourself. Really just protect yourself and be careful out there, because not everyone has your best interest in mind, even if they say they want to have some great impact on the world. That's not necessarily always true. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked today's video. I am so curious to hear what you think about Wim Hof and this practice, and I just am really grateful for your support. So I am going to be posting some more videos very soon. I have a very special topic coming to you this weekend. So without further ado, with all that being said, thank you so much for being here today. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. Until next time, bye.